It was a humid Thursday afternoon in New York City, the kind of day where even the subway seemed to sweat. People huddled on the platform, fans of all shapes and sizes doing their best to circulate the stifling air. Among them stood Marvin, a man who could only be described as eccentrically confident. He was carrying an object that immediately drew curious glances. A fully inflated, bright blue inflatable pool, its plastic sides wobbling slightly with each step. At first, commuters assumed he was some kind of street performer or advertising stunt. But Marvin just smiled politely, gripping the pool's sides like it was a precious cargo. "Afternoon, everyone," he said, cheerfully ignoring the rising stairs. "Just heading downtown." People whispered, nudged each other, and took out their phones. This was unusual, even for the subway. Babies stared, teens laughed, and an elderly woman muttered something about kids these days. Marvin, however, remained unfazed. I had planned this meticulously, or at least as meticulously as someone can plan to bring a giant, inflatable pool onto a subway train. The doors opened and Marvin stepped in. There was a collective pause.
Yes.
The train was moderately crowded, filled with the usual mixture of harried commuters, tourists, and people pretending to read newspapers. Marvin maneuvered his pool as gracefully as possible, wedging it just enough to fit. "Excuse me?" he chirped, as the pool pressed against knees, backpacks, and a disgruntled man holding a coffee cup. Miraculously, nothing spilled, yet. Marvin finally found a spot near the middle of the car and sat down, or rather attempted to sit down. Inflatable pools aren't designed for subway seating, and the plastic squeaked ominously as it hit the floor. Passengers tried to sidestep it, but Marvin's cheerful demeanor was contagious. Few couldn't help laughing. A little girl reached out and poked it, giggling as the side bounced back like a trampoline. Marvin smiled. "It's for science," he said simply. "Urban science." A man reading a financial report squinted. "Urban science," he muttered. Marvin nodded seriously. "Yes, today I am testing the limits of public space utilization. Also, I may or may not fill it with water at Grand Central." He tapped the side of the pool for emphasis. The man went back to his report, unconvinced. The subway lurched forward, and Marvin adjusted the pool. The wobbling plastic knocked against poles, subway ads, and the occasional backpack. A woman holding groceries squealed as her bag toppled slightly. Sorry. Marvin apologized, bending over to help her stabilize the tomatoes and kale. Safety first, the science second. At every stop, new passengers arrived, many stopping to gape. Some took videos, already imagining the TikTok clips that would ensue. A young man whispered, "Is that a pool?" And his friend nodded like they were witnessing an urban miracle. Marvin beamed. He had succeeded in drawing attention without causing chaos so far. As the train rattled along, Marvin began explaining his project to anyone who would listen. Inflatable pools are underrated. They bring joy, relaxation, and sometimes a little chaos. And here, in the confined space of a subway car, they offer a perfect study of human patience and social boundaries. A few passengers nodded, pretending to understand. Others laughed openly. Marvin counted it as a win either way. The climax arrived at the stop closest to the waterfront. Marvin stood up announcing, "Everyone, prepare for the grand finale." He dragged the pool toward the doors as they slid open, eliciting cheers, confusion, and a few exclamations of horror. The platform was crowded, and Marvin wove through the crowd like a man on a mission. Finally, he reached a relatively open stretch, carefully maneuvering the pool onto the platform. A few kids cheered. Parents looked skeptical. A commuter muttered something about OSHA regulations. Marvin ignored him. He knelt beside the pool and dramatically reached into his backpack. Out came a small spray bottle filled with water. "Now," he said, turning toward the amused audience, "observe the hydrodynamics of portable recreation in public transportation environments." A light mist sprayed the inside of the pool, creating a faint shimmer in the afternoon light. Children gasped. Someone clapped. Marvin smiled proudly. Before long, a security guard approached, blinking at the unusual scene. "Sir, what exactly are you doing with that pool?" Marvin looked up, ever the picture of earnestness. "I'm conducting a sociological experiment," he explained. We're studying public reactions to sudden joy in shared space. It's very scientific. The guard frowned, glancing at the witnesses, some of whom were now filming with their phones. Marvin winked. It's harmless fun, I assure you. After a tense pause, the guard shook his head, muttered something about New York being weird, and let him be. Marvin carefully deflated the pool, folding it with care as the platform buzzed with excitement. Children waved, tourists took photos, and a few adults whispered, "What a legend." By the time Marvin boarded another train, the pool tucked under his arm, he felt a strange satisfaction. He hadn't just transported a physical object. He delivered a little dose of absurdity into people's mundane routines. The subway, a place usually filled with silent faces and buried heads, had been alive with laughter, curiosity, and questions. Marvin leaned back, exhausted but triumphant. "Science complete," he murmured. Mr. Whiskers, who he had brought along in a small carrier for moral support, purred, apparently approving of the chaotic day. Outside, the city hummed, and inside the subway, somewhere between a musician playing saxophone and a tourist asking for directions, Marvin realized something important. Sometimes you just need to bring a pool into the chaos of everyday life. And for one unforgettable afternoon, that's exactly what he did.